This is the second in my mini-series about English transport. Last week we looked at canals. Today we take a ride along Disused Railways in Hertfordshire, which is a county directly north of London. This route covers the Nickey Line, Ayot Greenway and Alban Way. George Stephenson kicked off the railway era in 1825 in northeast England. Lines were built by businessmen and would run near each other without being connected, with many proving unprofitable. During the 1920s and 30s, 2,000 kilometres or 1,300 miles of track were closed. After World War II, when the rail network was taken over by the government, a further 4,800 kilometres or 3,000 miles was closed. During the 1950s, cars were becoming the vehicle of choice and road haulage was used to transport goods and materials. At the start of the 1960s, the UK government-owned British Rail was losing £140 million per year, which is about $4 billion in today's money. Dr Beeching, who was the British Rail chief at the time, was tasked with making the railways pay. This led to 67,000 rail job cuts. In 1963, Beeching issued a report which led to the closure of 7,200 kilometres or 4,500 miles of track and 2,128 stations. This was a third of the lines and 55% of the stations. Beeching intended for passengers on lightly loaded routes to be serviced by buses. He intended to promote the transport of goods and materials. However, the public was much more interested in passenger travel. Beeching gets all the blame for rail closures, however it started long before him. Furthermore, the Minister of Transport in 1963 was Ernest Ridgway, who also owned a company that constructed motorways. This has led to accusations that Ridgway wanted to promote cars over trains for personal profit. The line closures were done with the intention they could never be reopened. Track was removed and sold for scrap, embankments and bridges destroyed and land sold off for other uses. The A1M even splits the Alban Way into two parts. 2 years later, Beeching produced a second report that promoted investment in the remaining lines. However, this was never implemented. Line closures failed to make the network profitable. In most cases, the replacement bus network was closed after 2 years of service because it was more convenient to take the car. Removal of point-to-point goods transportation also meant that trucks were preferred over rail for most transport. Alban Way is the best preserved of the three Hertfordshire lines. The former railway opened in 1865 and was in use for passengers until 1951 and freight until 1969. It was never a busy route with at most 8 passenger trains per day, and it's unlikely to have ever made a profit. Nast Hyde has few houses, certainly not enough to justify a station. However, prior to World War I, High-end development had commenced, including the golf course. This all stopped due to the war and never restarted, with some houses being demolished so that de Havilland Aircraft Company could expand their factory. An additional station was built in Hatfield during World War II for aircraft manufacturing workers, but it was not included in the timetable for security reasons. Hill End was a psychiatric hospital from 1899. Patients were brought here and largely forgotten about, as was the custom of the day. It was closed in 1995. Opened in 1860 and operated for more than 100 years. Passenger numbers declined sharply after the Second World War and passenger services ended in 1951, although commercial traffic continued until 1966. Today there are still visual reminders of the line, with two bridges still intact, the original fencing and even part of the collapsed railway signal. There are a small number of lines that could be reopened, but as you've seen in this video, there are a lot of obstacles to overcome. High Speed Rail 2 or HS2 has only just been cancelled, and so it seems unlikely that the current government will reopen lines or expand the network. In 2024 there will be a general election that Labour is expected to win. They have promised to build HS2 plus major lines in the north. I'd love to hear your comments, so please tell me whether you think Beeching did the right thing and whether the train network has a bright future in the UK. If you've enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. To ensure you never miss another video, please hit the subscribe and bell button.